Herminia Ibarra, you are the Professor of Organizational Behavior at INSEAD, and we're here at the OECD Forum where you've been participating in a session on the male factor. What have you taken away from this session?
Okay. Well, Nick, it's been a session that really has covered a whole range of things dealing with the topic of gender equality, but not just from the angle of equality for women, but from the angle of equality for men, and particularly in the area of workplace flexibility. So how do we arrange our lives and fix our organizations so that they can allow more people, both men and women, to both have successful careers and have satisfying personal lives. And one of the interesting things that's come out of the conversation is that we often look to a number of European countries, particularly the Scandinavian countries, that have pioneered very family-friendly practices and policies, long parental leaves, a lot of flexibility in terms of working part-time, and there now seems to be a good bit of evidence suggesting that some of these policies, while necessary to make sure that women are participating in the economy, can have pretty dysfunctional consequences. Notably, the more you have these practices in place in a country, the broader the gap there is between women's labor force participation and their participation in positions of senior decision making. So for example, in the US, we're criticized a lot for not having family-friendly practices, not having mandated maternity leaves, but the United States is the country with the smallest gap with regard to women at the most senior levels of managerial decision making. And what happens is when you have these practices in place, women end up much more in what we call the pink ghettos, staff roles, supporting functions, HR, communications, things that tend to have a bit more flexibility because you're not on the front line, you're not traveling all the time, you're not answering to a client, but very rarely lead to the most senior levels of management.
So this is an unintended consequence, but it's the result of the women in question not being forced into the front line.
What I would say is that policies can mandate practices that have to be applied, but they can't mandate what particular jobs people are going to be assigned to. And one of the things that we have seen is that women tend to predominate in roles, in jobs, in organizations, in industry sectors that have more flexibility to them, that have fewer hours in terms of their job requirements, that have fewer travel requirements, and that often are paid less and have less power and status associated with them.
But would these be more family-friendly positions to be occupying? Is there a trade-off? Are we talking about a trade-off between family and responsibility, for
yes,
example?
of course there is. If you don't work, you're more family-friendly. If you work 10 hours, you're more family-friendly than if you work 70 hours. But again, the question is, do we have to necessarily think about flexibility only in terms of certain kinds of jobs and support functions, or can we rethink the nature of work such that across the board we have fewer people working 24/7 in a rigid way, in a way that means you must be present, you can't work from home, you can't take certain times off? Can we make that available to a broader swath of people, to a broader range of assignments, and not just to those that are lower paid and lower prestige?
Which countries would you say then offer a model where both aspects of this work?
There are none yet, and that's what remains to be invented. That's what the conversation was about. What can be done? The examples that we got from people participating from their companies is that what you need to do is not just encourage it, but make it visible, publicize it, show the role models, because a lot of times people are doing it, but behind the scenes, under the radar screen, and so therefore people don't realize that it's possible, that they can do a high-powered job and also have the flexibility they need.
Well, Herminia Ibarra, thank you very much for joining us at INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.